Hi everyone, Phil here. Welcome to the only YouTube travel guide to every country in the world. Today I have a very special guest, Harry Mitsidis, who, according to his travel app, Nomad Mania, is the most traveled person on Earth. Hey Harry, how you doing?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me.
You are very welcome. So, what is it about travel that really inspires you, and how did that bug get into you?
My parents are from different countries. So my father's Greek and my mother is South African English. So I think when you start off with that, you already have an advantage in terms of exposure to different cultures and a sense of curiosity and an awareness of geography. It started from an early age. I loved going to the airport and I knew all the airlines and all the countries they're flying to. And, gradually, I think a sense of curiosity led me to want to see more and more. I don't think it started with a conscious plan of I'm going to go everywhere, I'm going to see everything, It just, I want to see more and more and more. And ultimately it's a drug, very addictive. And eventually, I did become addicted. I think the moment when I really was conscious of the fact that I want to do them all was when I arrived in Afghanistan, which was my 100th country. I had always wanted to go to Afghanistan. It was always the no man's land that you cannot go to because it's dangerous. And then, of course, after everything that happened in 2001, suddenly it opened up. When I got there, which had been such an impossible place to go to, I thought, well, you know what? Now I've done the hardest one. Surely I can try to do them all. And I was already on 100, so there was less than half left. And that was in 2003. Okay. And it took me another 4 years and a bit to complete the list.
About Afghanistan, obviously things are going horribly wrong right now. You've spent more than one time there? Have you been back?
I've been there a total of 3 times. And each time was better than the one before.
In what ways were they better than the ones before? Or were you spending more time there, or were you getting deeper, or were you meeting more interesting people, or?
All of the above. So, the first time, obviously, I was quite terrified. And I went entirely alone. I managed to get a visa and I just landed there without any plan. I came out of Kabul airport and I'm like, well, here I am, now what? A guy approached me and he was like, I'm from the Afghan tourist board. And I'm like, there is one? and anyway, to cut a long story short, that guy really helped me out. And basically, we spent 3 days going around Kabul. But on that trip, I only did the capital. And the second time I went, I did Herat, which is in the west, near Iran. And I mean, that city is just a dream. It was just so beautiful. The location, the street scenes, everything. And then the last time I went, that was a more organized trip. I did it with a guide and we went to the center of the country, Bamiyan and Bande Amir Park.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's absolutely fabulous. Really, really it is. I cannot even tell you. Really, really devastated and thinking how horrible it is, and going back to my old photos, looking at these people I met and thinking, what is life going to be like for them now, and thinking how, things can often change so quickly, and we've got to be thankful for the experiences that we're able to have when we have them. I think my favorite thing is just to sit maybe in a cafe or something like that and just observe. And ideally it's a place without too many tourists, so I'm observing the locals going about their lives. I find that fascinating. I think you don't need much to understand the place. All you need to do is just look, understand the nuances, see how people interact. That kind of image of sitting in a cafe and just looking at what's going on around me, especially if it's outdoors and you can also see the street and people move along, that's something I always like doing.
In a typical year, how long are you gone from home?
I would say I'm home about a third of the time. The remaining 2/3, I'm probably in Greece about a month, and then I'm on the road about 200 days a year, I would say. Even now.
Even now, wow. Okay, so we'll get into coronavirus a little bit later. But for me, I have a home in San Francisco, but I feel more at home when I'm on the road. And I feel it the first couple of days when I'm beginning travels, I just feel this sense of calm, knowing that I don't know what's going to happen. And that for me is soothing. How do you feel about that?
For me, what is soothing is the movement, the sense of freedom to move. I think really that is the addiction more than travel in the sense of seeing a new place. In China, turtle, which was placed into a hot pot live. Poor thing. Just thinking about it, it's horrible. But then not only did that happen, but then they kind of crack it open, and then the blood is considered the delicacy, and you're meant to drink it.
Yeah. So what did it taste like?
Oh, the blood was...
It was hot.
Raspberry juice or what?
Raspberry juice? That sounds delicious.
Well, maybe raspberry juice, but not as sweet. Let's put it that way. And as far as the meat, it was just hard meat. Nothing particularly tasty.
Little chewy, like horse?
A bit chewy, yeah. But I do regret it. I would not do that again. Although I do think that when you're in a country, you really should try. You should not judge what people eat, or for that matter, how people think or their culture. You just need to accept it for what it is and go for it. That's what being a traveler is about.
I've eaten camel and horse, and camel was quite delicious. Horse, a little bit chewy.
Yeah,
I tried it in Kazakhstan because it's kind of the national meat.
Hi everyone, Phil here. On my channel, I've made playlists of the best videos for every country in the world. It's an amazing resource that's taken me hundreds of hours to produce. So I'm really glad you're here, but I'd be happier if you subscribe to support the work I'm doing.
So when the initial lockdown happened, I found myself spending 5 weeks at home, which is probably the longest I've spent without crossing a border in 20 years. And then I went to Sweden and I rented a car and I drove 4,000 kilometers in 9 days, because after 5 weeks at home, I just needed the road. I would say I am one of the more cautious travelers. I'm always going to be wearing a mask. At the airport and on the plane, I wear a visor. I continuously traveled within Europe. I didn't attempt any trips to places where I felt I wasn't in control. So my style of travel changed entirely. In the olden days, I would use public transport a lot, trains, buses, that was fine. Now, almost everywhere, I would rent a car and I would make sure it's just the car and me. I think to a certain extent, a lot of the experience is lost because it's all about people.
My experience was very similar to yours. Once I decided to travel, I rented a car. I was by myself. I was in Switzerland and Italy and Croatia, and basically, made my own meals and saw things shut down, which was a blessing and a curse. You're able to go through the old towns and really experience it in a totally different way and not have all the selfie-taking tourists everywhere. But at the same time, it kind of lost some of its soul.
I think we're in this for the long haul. I don't think Corona will go anywhere for the next few years. And so we better get used to it and try to live within the parameters that we can. I would say it's Afghanistan's neighbor, Iran. When people hear Iran, they immediately think, well, terrorists, it has a dreadful international reputation to people who have not been there. But I think anyone who's been there immediately gets hooked. And that's mainly because of the people. The Iranians are hands down the most hospitable, friendly people I have ever encountered. And then the country itself has so many different landscapes. You know, you've got desert, you've got the Caspian in the north, which is very different. Then you've got the south, which is very dry and hot. You know, it's a country which is extremely diverse, extremely welcoming, and I think very unfortunately misunderstood. And I don't want to get into politics, and I do not doubt that some of their politics might not be acceptable perhaps, but that doesn't change what I would say about the traveler's experience there,
Right.
which is, you know, every time I've been, it's been fantastic.
So Nomad Mania is a master list of the most traveled people in the world. You're one of only a couple hundred people who have been to all 193 UN countries. But it seems Nomad Mania takes counting countries much further, with a list of 1,310 regions in the world. What inspired you to make it more than 193 countries?
When I finished the countries, there was a great sense of achievement, but at the same time, it was an anticlimax. You know, now you've done the aim, and some people spend their whole lives doing it, and I was only 36 and still very much addicted to travel. You know, so I was like, well, what now? And I think the more I thought about it, the more I realized that countries are not the same. And if you really want to have a list which makes sense of the world, you need to divide countries in a rational way into regions.
So Harry, I noticed you're at the top of the list. Coincidence or? And I see there's someone named Sasha that's gaining on you. How are you going to stave him off?
I wish Sasha would speed it up and pass me, and I can rest. It is so embarrassing to be the founder of something and end up being ranked first on the list. It was not always the case, I have you know. So for the first 8 years of the site's existence, I was in the top 10, but you know, I was definitely not even second or something. But then in 2019, I really traveled a lot. I really went for the countries that I was missing regions in, and I'm so thankful I did, given COVID. And I ended up going up there to the first place with quite a big difference. So I've been ranked first for a couple of years now, and I plead with whoever's listening to do a good job and pass me. I really don't want that position anymore. Seriously. I think it's bad for the credibility of the site for the founder to be ranked first.
Are there any regions on the list that haven't been visited by anyone?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think so, though. I think all the regions have been visited by someone. There's just a few that have only been visited by 5 or 6 of our members. You know, the numbers are very low. One is Ile-de-France, Paris. The second one is actually Netherlands, Central and West. Amsterdam, Rotterdam, whatever. The third is UK, Greater London. And the fourth is Lazio, which includes Rome, that province. Fifth is Eastern Catalonia, which includes Barcelona. Yeah. In the top 14 of our visited regions, they're all European. And then the 15th one is New York City and Long Island.
And that makes sense, because when you first start traveling internationally, whether you're from Russia or from the US or even from Europe, Europe is the place to go. It's the easiest, it's the safest, and there's, let's face it, there's a lot of cool things to see there. So that's where people go first. What is the most popular place in Africa? I'm going to guess South Africa somewhere.
Well, in Northern Africa, Egypt, Cairo, that region, that is quite high. And in fact, I think that's the highest one in Africa.
How about Sub-Saharan Africa?
South Africa, Western Cape, followed very closely by South Africa, Gauteng. And that includes Johannesburg and Pretoria.
Right.
After that, in the third position, if I look at all of them, it's Kenya, Nairobi. And then, perhaps surprisingly high, The fourth in sub-Saharan Africa is Zanzibar.
What a great place to go after a safari to kind of unwind.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely recommended, yeah. And if you want to, you could spend days just exploring Nomad Mania. Every region has its own page with a map, things to do, people who've been there. Now we've also added a section with blog stories about that region. So the idea is to make every region a one-stop shop.
Oh my God, that is a ton of work. I completely understand because I'm one person and I went out and indexed 193 countries of YouTube videos, but not just, the top 3 places to go, where to eat, travel with kids, shopping, but that's only 193 countries. What you've done is remarkable.
We are a non-profit organization now. This year we are awarding our first travel scholarships. So to people who have never traveled outside their country. And obviously that goes to people from less developed countries. And the idea is to give young people and students, university students, an experience that they will never forget. So the way I see it moving is more in that direction, trying to offer more to travelers.
So is this all done by the honor system, or is there any way of verifying what people put in?
Great question. We don't want to scare people away. I think some people may be put off by the idea of being checked, but I think that is what gives our site credibility.
How do you verify?
And there's all sorts of things you can send. We will accept photographs for some regions. But for example, if you say you've been to Saudi Arabia, where everyone needs a visa, and then you send us a photo where you're not in of a mosque and claim that, yeah, I've been there, here's the mosque. Right. Well, we'll be like, well, where are you? How do we know that that's your photo? We will probe.
I don't take a lot of pictures of myself, and I have had a passport lost, but I do have a very unique way of people knowing that I've been there.
What is it, Pokemon? Oh, okay. You have a totem. Right, okay. Yeah. You take photos of him instead of yourself.
More. I take some photos of me, but mainly I'm taking photos of him, and then people come up to me and they want to take photos of him, or they want to take photos with him, right? So I've gotten some amazing photos of people that may not have been so interested in me just snapping a photo of them, but when they have him and they're getting a real reaction, they're smiling, they're looking at him like this, they're playing, they're looking under his shirts. I mean, the number of people who have kissed his nose, I won't touch it.
Okay. Yeah.
I do get him dry clean from time to time though, so
this would definitely be accepted proof. Every traveler should see himself or herself as an ambassador of the place they come from. I think this is really important, and I'm not sure people understand that. I think many people travel, quote unquote, selfishly. They want to get from the place they're visiting, but it should be that you're also giving. And that doesn't mean you need to give money or anything concrete, but you can give parts of yourself, part of your experience. In many of these hard to get to places, people are extremely curious about how the world is back where you're from. They may not have all the technology which allows them to see that. So you need to be prepared to engage. You always need to be positive, and show yourself and the country you're from in the best possible light.
You've interviewed a wide variety of people for Nomad Mania, people from all walks of life and different economic backgrounds. Was there one that stood out from the rest? Do you have any interesting stories or something that people would be shocked to hear?
We have interviewed someone but have not published the interview yet. And that is the interview that has impressed me most, because this is a traveler who is blind and almost deaf.
Wow.
So I think when you have that, and yet you have the will to travel and explore. And this guy has been to, I think, about 130 countries. Nothing can surpass that. Both blind and deaf, and yet they travel and experience the world and refuse to give in to these limitations. I think this is a lesson for all of us. I am in awe. I don't even have words to express my feelings, and it ultimately shows us that if you really want something, you can do it. Nothing will stop you. It's just you need to have that willpower inside. So that is an interview that we have not yet published. It is going to come up within the next couple of months, and I urge everyone to watch out for it because that's really a memorable one.
Wow. Okay, you got me interested. I read all the interviews, but this one,
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Harry, for taking the time. I advise or I encourage everyone to check out the site, nomadmania.com. And you have an app as well on both iPhone and Android?
Both? Yeah.
Okay, so check it out and see all the places there are in the world that you haven't been to, and check off all the places that you have been to. There
And
we go.
here is the
There we
logo, Nomad Mania. Yep.
And if you want, you could buy a shirt on the site, I imagine.
No, these are collector. We don't sell anything. So these are collector items. If anyone really wants one, they can write to me and, we'll send it for free. Yeah.
Well, that's terrific. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing that interview, and I look forward to seeing your progress on either becoming the first one to do it all, or in your words, having someone to pass you, which
That is going to be a good day when someone passes me. Yeah. Thanks so much
I really
for
appreciate
having me. And thanks for all your hard work and all your research in getting those YouTube videos done. And I wish you many happy travels as well.
Okay, take it easy. Bye.
Bye.
You made it! Thanks so much for watching, and remember, my channel has videos for every country in the world. Check out another country right below, and please don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, cheers!